Hello lovely, it's time for another supernaturally healthy blog. And I'm Kezia Hall. This is my kitchen, in case you didn't realize. And today we're going to be talking about SIBO. Yep, I know you're excited. I know you're excited to talk about small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, also known as SIBO for short. So the reason we're going to be talking about SIBO is that it's something that I see come up in my one-to-one practice all the time, and it's something that I have had to deal with. SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that is when you get too much of a specific bacteria in your small intestine. So you might already know that your intestines, you do have different levels of bacteria, but in your large intestine, that's where you have your most bacteria. It's kind of like a bacteria party going on in your large intestine, but your small intestine is a little bit more reserved. It doesn't have quite as much bacteria, but with SIBO, what happens is some of that kind of partying bacteria in your large intestine travels back up to your small intestine and messes things up. And it messes things up big style. So how do you know if you have SIBO? What could some of the symptoms be? Well, let me tell you, SIBO is most commonly found in people that have been diagnosed with IBS. Statistics mention or range between about 50 to up to even 75% of people that have been diagnosed with IBS are actually dealing with a SIBO infection. So the symptoms can be really varied and ranging. It can be things like nausea, bloating, constipation is really common, but also for some people diarrhea or both. There can be joint pain, which is what I really struggled with. There can be funny skin issues, low energy, fatigue, brain fog, mental health problems. The list is huge. So there can be really loads of different symptoms. So the best way to find out if you actually have it is to test. So the best test that you can do, it's a breath test that you would take. You can do it through labs like Genova Diagnostics do one, and a couple of other different labs where you breathe into the test and it basically can tell whether or not you have this infection. That's the best way of doing it. But for some people, they can't afford that kind of testing, and so you can just treat it and assume that you have it and test your results by how you feel. So if you do a test and you're like, oh, I have SIBO, or maybe you just read up about it, you listen to this blog, you read some of the links below and you go, holy smokes, Kezia, I think I have SIBO. And chances are if you have SIBO, you'll have been around the houses with your health. You'll have had blood tests and all these different things that will all come back normal, and you just think you're maybe a little bit crazy and that you actually need to go and see a psychiatrist because no one believes you and everything appears to be normal. If that's you, then chances are SIBO could be a problem, because that was my experience. So what the heck do you do about it? Well, there's a couple of key things when it comes to SIBO treatment. Number one is you've got to sort out your diet. SIBO and this bacteria that's overgrown within your small intestine loves sugar. Yeah, what a shocker. So cleaning up your diet, making it based around whole foods, removing the refined sugars, ditching the sugar addiction, discovering if you had food sensitivities, removing things like grains, gluten, dairy, and finding out if that makes you feel better is really, really important. You want a diet that's based on whole, nutrient-dense, high-quality foods, lots of vegetables, lots of organic meats and wild fishes, things like eggs, nuts, seeds, bone broths, fermented foods, smoothies, vegetable juices, all of that sort of stuff. So that's number one, you've got to get your diet sorted. And if you know you're a bit of a sugar addict, then I have got an amazing resource for you that I'll tell you about at the end. Number two is you've got to de-stress. And that might be like, yawn, Kezia, so boring, but you've got to at least within your day have some stress management, somewhere that you process the stresses of the day. For me, that looks like a meditation and a journaling practice, but for you, it might be exercise, walking, or just taking some deep breaths in and deep breaths out. It can be that simple. Number three is you've got to make sure that your detox pathways within your liver are super happy and on point. So your liver has two detox pathways, and you want to make sure before you treat for SIBO that they're really robust and optimally functioning. So ways that you can do this are using things like turmeric, coriander, garlic, green leafy vegetables. Another thing to do is make sure you're pooping at least once a day, ideally twice, because this is going to really help shift that bad bacteria out of your body. And also another way you can really support detoxification is sweating like a beast, whether that's through exercise, saunas, hot showers, hot baths, going to really hot countries on holiday, that's also an option. But sweating is an amazing way to detox the body. And number 4, probably one of the most important, is you've got to supplement and help treat the infection itself. So using things like herbal kind of antibiotics, really, things like wormwood, berberine, black walnut, oregano oil, garlic, really help to shift that infection away from the body. You also want to use therapeutic-based probiotics. I really like soil-based probiotics. There's a brand called Prescripticist, which I really enjoy. That's really helpful, and often with SIBO there's yeast infections, so using Saccharomyces boulardii is also really, really helpful, but really having good amounts of probiotics is really, really important. Then you also really want to address any of the other nutrient deficiencies going on in the body. So that's things like magnesium. Maybe you need to support the liver with some liposomal glutathione, which is really, really helpful at detoxing the body. So it's really about creating a really good supplement protocol to help shift that bacteria out the body. And then once you're finished, step 5 is you really need to support gut motility. And I really like to do that just with some good ginger supplementation to really help ensure that bacteria from the large intestine does not travel back up again. Now, it's worth knowing you can also use traditional antibiotics to treat this infection, but because I'm based in the UK, I've not found these very easy to get hold of through my local GP, which is why I've mentioned a more holistic and herbal approach. It's also really important with SIBO, you've got to do all these things I've just mentioned. Supplements alone aren't enough. Diet alone isn't enough. It is an infection and you have got to be determined to see its eradication, but it can be done. So if you want some help with your sugar addiction, which is the first step. If you're eating tons of sugar, even if that's tons of fruit every day, then that's the first thing you need to deal with. Then below I have a complete and comprehensive natural sweetener e-guide that's going to show you how to create one naturally sweet life and ditch the sugar addiction. So if you have any questions about SIBO or want to know any more information, then let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I shall see you next week for another episode of the Supernaturally Healthy Blog. Lots of love. Bye.